It's estimated that 6% of the world struggles with a gambling addiction. That's upwards of 429 million people. But only 6% of those people will ever actually seek help for their gambling problem. Today, I want to share 10 stories of recovering gamblers who have sought out help for their gambling. 11, I guess, if you count me. Here are their stories.
My name's Dave Yaeger. I'm an 11-year veteran of the U.S. Army, and I'm also in recovery for a gambling addiction, which I actually fell into while I was on active duty in the Army. I was stationed in Korea, and it was right after 9/11. I was in my first marriage, had 2 young kids, both under the age of 5. Got on the plane, flew to Korea. Got into Korea. I get on there. They put me up in the hotel, which is a very, very nice hotel. I get in there. I throw my stuff down. I'm tired, but I can't sleep. I'm hungry, so I go eat, and then I start walking around the hotel. And lo and behold, as I'm walking along, I start hearing these noises. So I'm like, what is this? So I kind of peek my head in there, and lo and behold, here's a casino-style slot machine room right there on the military base, right in the hotel. So I'm like, okay, I'm not too far from Atlantic City, so I gambled when I was younger. I had no problem with it. I'm going to go ahead and take out a couple $100. I'm tired, but I'm not ready to sleep. Let me just go in there and chill out until I'm ready to go to bed. So I'm playing along, and the first thing I notice is my shoulders are kind of dropping a little bit. But then I made what I always call the biggest mistake a budding problem gambler can make, and I won. I was not rolling in riches at that point, but it was enough where in that moment, I could remember kind of all that stress and all that pain and all that anguish I was going through. Just in that moment, it went away. Now, it didn't go away forever, of course, but it went away in that moment. And that felt so good that I kept trying to recreate that moment over the course of my time on the peninsula while I was in Korea. What started off as a Friday night and the occasional Friday night turned into Friday, Saturday night, then turned into Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then eventually nights during the week. That built to the point where now I'm going on my lunch breaks. It just kept developing from the point of I'm enjoying this and this feels good to I need to do this. I fully engaged in GA and I still go to it to this day. I very much engaged in the treatment program when I was out there. I say so connected to my recovery now, 4 years into my recovery. It's a very different mentality than it was in 2007 when all of this began.
So my name's Ollie. I'm from England. I'm 18 years old. I've been 18 for about 6 months now. I started gambling on my birthday, actually, because in England there's loads of sign-up offers for loads of different gambling sites that just get pushed on you when you watch like sports. They're always advertising. So I started a sort of, relatively low amounts of money, just, having a bit of a fun bet with my friends. And then eventually it would spiral, I wouldn't be able to watch sports without gambling on it. I mean, for my age, I'm down quite a substantial amount. It sort of makes you lose the perception of money because I'd gamble, to buy food if I go out. I'd gamble to pay for my petrol. I'd have big wins, and it would be in my account, and then I wouldn't withdraw it. I'd say, look, I can get this up to whatever number, and I'd be back at square one again. The thing with the gambling problem is it's not spoken about enough. You see people online say, just stop gambling, which I think is quite a silly thing to say because you wouldn't say to, an alcoholic, you say stop drinking. It's a very real addiction, and I think it affects a lot more people than people might think.
Hey everyone, my name is Kitty Martz, and I'm a person that has lived experience with gambling harm. I live in Portland, Oregon, and I'm 54 years old, and I don't measure my recovery by the last time I gambled. There's lots of life factors that affect it, but it's been a dozen or so years since I was behind a video lottery terminal, which was my main way that I was gambling. I work for Voices of Problem Gambling Recovery, and I started as a peer mentor. It's about to get really bad. A lot of people are going to be struggling with gambling, and that's because it's going to be on our phones. And so there's no start time or end time. It's around the clock. You can just push a button to get money into the phone. There's not a good way to shut the brain down from just being on in gambling on our phones and privately. And so we know from other countries in Europe, like the UK, that once things like slot machine action are on phones, it pretty much triples the addiction rate. So all this sports gambling that's happening, it's not going to be like the over-under on your favorite football team that you're going to just pick for this weekend. It's about like parlays and making bigger bets. And then you get into that. And then a huge percentage of folks that get involved in that kind of action transfer over to the online casino. If you follow Rob on the One Day at a Time channels on TikTok, you see a lot of his story and talking about that kind of thing of, I don't know what happened, but it got away from me and now I'm trying to get it back, that chasing sort of thing. A lot of that's going to happen with the online casinos that we get to through sports. And if there's any feeling that has really done it for me since I quit gambling, it's been advocacy work.
My name is Zell, and I'm 25 years old, and I'm a recovering problem gambler. I've probably been gambling since I was about 12 years old. I started gambling on a online video game called RuneScape, and they had these mini games inside the game where people could bet gold against each other from a very young age, like 12, 13. My mum used to buy me like gold inside this game to play with, and essentially I would gamble it against other players. And I remember for the first time when I was probably like 12 or 13, just feeling sick to my stomach losing gold in a video game. Stakes just kept getting bigger. I started finding online casinos. It started getting really bad because I just felt sick all the time. I felt anxious all the time. One day that I was gambling, when I realized I really had a problem, is I was playing blackjack and my hair was like falling out at my computer. And I was like grabbing my head in just sheer bloody just trauma, and I noticed my hair was in my hands, and I was like, oh my God, that's not normal. But yeah, I realized I had a problem, and I rang a problem gambling helpline, and they were really good, and they got me a referral to see a therapist, a problem gambling therapist, and that's been a tremendous help. I haven't placed a bet in probably around 6 months.
Yeah, I'm Jason Brescia, gambling addict, compulsive gambling addict. My last wager was 12/31/22. I've been involved in recovery since June 6, 1988 for other drugs and alcohol. And gambling took me by storm. Throughout my recovery from drugs and alcohol, I was gambling the whole time. I'd liked it since I was 5 years old at the carnivals, playing the games and going to the card tents with my father. And once I started in my late teens, I loved it. I embezzled hundreds of thousands of dollars, both from myself, from my own businesses, partners I've had. I stole lots of money from my own wife and used my kids' college funds. It literally took me to a place where I wanted to myself. I think due to the recovery experience I've had, I hit such a bottom where I truly had the willingness to do anything it took. And that's exactly what I did. I grabbed on back to the program, my prayer, my higher power. I immediately started getting on my knees and praying for help.
All right, man. My name is Taufick Batarse. I'm addicted to gambling, and just saying that is in front of potentially a lot of people. It's kind of counterintuitive for an addict, right? And for so long, ever since I started, I was always running away from everybody finding out what I was doing. But it all started in El Salvador back in 2002. My friends invited me. They say, hey, there's a free ad. You get free money if you go to the casino. There's no risk. That they insisted so much, and they portrayed it as there's nothing to lose. There's no risk. And so I did. And I was nervous. But once there, I realized it's like, man, this is like a big party, all the music and the machines. And I was curious about everything. I play. It became like a habit that waiting for that free ad on the newspaper to get free money to go to the casino, go with my friends. And then there was this moment where My friends wasn't telling me. I was telling them, it's like, hey, aren't we going to go this time? I wanted to go so bad that I started going by myself. When I had that first significant win for a newbie, right? That created that in me, like the idea that this is going to get me out of the financial situation that I'm in right now. You can see your future if you keep gambling, or you can see your future if you stop gambling. It's so easy to see it, but you just need to look for it and recognize it and accept it.
My name is Jon Pierre, and I am 2 years recovered. It was probably about 6 months into recovery when the aha moment happened. Just having this touch point of family. My grandfather was a legitimate gambler and really blew up his life, and it impacted all sorts of things in our family. Like when I say I didn't have a choice, it dawned on me within recovery that I could. And that meant a couple things. One was I have worked in disaster relief. I have worked in the NGO world. I had 25 years of professional experience, but also I could, in the sense of like, I was realizing because of the way mainly my relationship ended, I had the capacity. Like when you come clean and you're trying to save your marriage or save parenting, that's like another part-time job that I didn't have. So I could actually just have the bandwidth to consider it. And then like the biggest spiritual aha was really like a quote I was referring to a lot, which was, we all have two lives, and the second one starts when we realize we only have one.
Things really connected for me when I actually experienced some harms from gambling. I guess now at this point it's been about 13 years ago. So it was 2011. I was 25 at the time. I was just consumed with roulette. I loved roulette. I loved everything about roulette. And that particular spring and summer, I was all in, playing quite a bit at various casinos. This is before really the rise of a lot of mobile gambling and such. So I'm physically going to multiple casinos in Vegas. I'm going on business trips to Philly because there's a couple casinos there as well. I'm driving down to Indiana, and I should mention that at the time I was living in Ohio. So I'm doing all this gambling. I'm winning quite a bit, and I end up just hitting a wall where the losses slowly piling up, and it ended up being a pretty harsh fall of 2011. I ended up burning through the savings that I had at the time. So at that point, I knew I had to stop what I was doing. I knew I couldn't continue doing that and reaching the type of goals and the type of vision that I had for myself. So it was tough, but I committed to stopping gambling, and I put myself on a strict spending plan, i.e. a budget, and cutting out a lot of dining out, cutting out much entertainment. I was reducing my cell phone plan. I was reducing my internet plan, just about anything that I could do to save as much as possible. And then on top of that, I took on a couple of part-time jobs in addition to the full-time job I was working. So I'm working 3 jobs to, at the time, just get back what I had lost. I had some missteps, I had some lapses along the way, but about 10 months after when I committed to the plan, I not only saved the $10,000 that I had lost, but I actually saved $20,000. So I felt the power.
My name is Sam DeMello. I've struggled with a severe gambling addiction for most of my life. I started gambling when I was a teenager, like 13, kind of right in the epicenter of the poker boom. So I started gambling when Chris Moneymaker won the World Series on ESPN. I watched that. I thought that was great. Got super into it. Played cards all through middle school and high school. Continued to play cards really seriously in college. And then my gambling really increased when I discovered sports betting and kind of also online betting when I was in my early 20s. I started from a place of, this will be a fun thing for me to do with my friends, and we'll have something to talk about, and I'll get more into sports because it's not something that I'm, super passionate about in general. And very quickly, it went from me gambling on like a game that we were watching together at a bar, to games by myself at my house, to 24/7. I was gambling on my phone. I was gambling at work. I was gambling on other things that I would probably not do in a real casino where people could see me. Definitely would not play slot machines in a casino. But from the kind of privacy and secrecy of my own phone, I definitely would do that. So it was this constant up and down and feeling of unease. And I don't feel like that. Even on my worst days today, I'm not engaging in this self-destructive behavior.
So my name is Jeff Wasserman, and I work for the Delaware Council on Gambling Problems, which is a state affiliate council. So I am a person with lived experience. I'm in recovery for approximately 8.5 years. In my own recovery, I was an avid attendee of GA meetings, and that's helped me tremendously in terms of my own recovery. But there were some things that I noticed as my recovery stabilized and I got more involved professionally in the field. There were some things that were concerning. You have somebody now that comes into recovery, it's typically they gambled online. Unlike me, who had to hide where I was going because I gambled at a physical casino, they could gamble next to their parents or their partner on their device without, any kind of suspicion that they're actually gambling, because people on their phone is just normalized.
Gambling addiction is the hidden addiction, but things really can get better. If you want to get better, then watch this video that I made about how I quit gambling and I've stayed clean for over the last 692 days. And until we figure everything out, let's just keep getting better together, one day at a time.